Hello, Sassy Nari. Thank you for joining me today. So, do you discuss your mental health struggles with your partner regularly? Most of us don't. Some people don't discuss this at all, while others do it here and there. I'm also in the here and there category, by the way. And I congratulate you if you both are completely transparent with each other. एक हेल्दी रिलेशनशिप के लिए ओपन कम्युनिकेशन बहुत ज़रूरी है, चाहे वो मेंटल हेल्थ जैसे टैबू टॉपिक पर ही क्यों ना हो. सो लेट्स फाइंड आउट कि मेंटल हेल्थ डिस्कस करना क्यों इंपॉर्टेंट है, ओपन कम्युनिकेशन इतना मुश्किल क्यों है, रिलेशनशिप में सेल्फ केयर का क्या रोल है, अपने रिलेशनशिप में एक दूसरे की मेंटल हेल्थ को हम कैसे सपोर्ट कर सकते हैं और भी बहुत कुछ. मेरे साथ हैं मोनिका कालरा. शी इज़ द फाउंडर ऑफ रिवोर्स. As a seasoned divorce and relationship confidence coach, she shares her inspirational journey of reclaiming personal power after her divorce. With expertise and compassion, Monica coaches women to transition from a mindset of powerlessness to becoming relationship warriors. Her guidance extends beyond overcoming the stigma of divorce. She empowers women to revive confidence, reclaim inner strength, and reset emotionally, fostering thriving future relationships. A motivational speaker, workshop facilitator, and author of 2 insightful books, Monica continues to inspire transformative journeys. This is a raw and honest conversation for everyone to listen to, so please share it with someone who might need it. And before jumping into it, please follow Little Fixes on your podcast app. It helps a lot. Hey Sassy Nari, welcome to Little Fixes. This is your host Matri, a social media professional, a mother, and a simple yet sassy woman just like you. Join me for 3 simple and practical ideas that help you in transforming into your best self. This mental health and personal growth podcast is a reminder that you matter. And now to our guest. Hi Monica, welcome to Little Fixes.
Thank you, Matri, for having me. I'm honored to be here.
So Monica, we are talking about mental health in relationships. तो लेट्स स्टार्ट विद कि ये मेंटल हेल्थ इश्यूज को एड्रेस करना इतना इम्पॉर्टेंट ही क्यों है रिलेशनशिप्स में, कि हमारी रिलेशनशिप को इम्प्रूव करने में, एक दूसरे को समझने में ये किस तरीके से हेल्प करता है.
That's a very lovely question that you've started with, Matri, because everything around is relational. Relationships begin with all of us. And talking about mental health issues is paramount at the moment because our relationships have undergone such a huge change. And especially in cultures like India, where earlier we all know that we all lived in joint families. So there was an entire village, and this idea comes from Esther Perel, where there was an entire village to support us.
Yeah.
Whereas now, most of the families have become quite nuclear. And therefore, the roles have changed. Earlier, we had very well defined roles in a family, in a joint family. Whereas now, the expectations on both the partners have increased tremendously because we want our partners to be best mothers, best fathers, best brothers, best lovers, best. You talk about anything. We want them to support us in our household chores. We want them to support us in every way possible. And moreover, currently, the way where we are talking about authenticity, we also want our partners to be conscious partners. We want them to help us in our personal development and even in our self actualization. And so the
Yeah.
stress on the partners has increased so much, and therefore, it is very, very important to discuss the mental health issues in relationships because if we are leaving them unaddressed, then it leads to communication breakdowns, it leads to conflicts, it leads to emotional detachment. And if we are addressing them, then the partners not only feel seen, heard, validated, but at the same time, they we not only look after the well-being of the couple, but we also look after the health, the overall health of a relationship. So mental health issues are very, very important at the moment to be discussed within a relationship.
Okay. So, Monica, you must have seen a lot of different mental health challenges your clients go through. So, are there any challenges which keep coming up? जो आपने अपनी प्रैक्टिस में देखे हों?
Constantly, when I'm dealing with my clients, because I am a relationship coach and I'm also a divorce coach,
हुँ,
and the all over the world, 70% of the divorces that take place are due to lack of open communication.
वाओ! ओके।
Um, and it is surprising, and yet not surprising, that the divorce rate in India is only 1%. And this
हुँ,
does not mean that the relationships in India are perfect.
हुँ,
It is just because divorce is quite stigmatized in India. Because when a person goes through a divorce, there is the idea of being judged, being ashamed. There is family honor involved. There is a lot of
या
shame involved. There is division of assets. There is dismantling of the family structure, and therefore we keep our relationship matters within the house itself. In
हुँ,
India, the idea is we don't air our dirty laundry outside. So outside, to the world outside, we show a very rosy picture,
हुँ,
whereas deep inside, because I was also born and raised in India, so I'm very well aware of how relationships work in India. So we keep everything under the carpet, we shove it under the carpet, and we don't indulge in open communication.
हुँ,
So, what does open communication actually mean, or what does it look like? Open communication, as Stephen Covey says, um, that we need to listen with the intent to understand rather than with the intent to respond. So, what do I mean by that? In our relationships, we need to be present and curious whenever we are having a communication. So, by being present, I mean that when your partner is sharing something with you, then you need to be listening really, really attentively, even going to the extent of repeating what the partner has said and then asking questions. Did I get that right?
हुँ,
Because normally what happens in our relationships, when a partner is sharing something, we are either on a phone, we are doing our chores, we are doing something or the other, and we are really not attentive,
हुँ,
or we've already got a response in our mind. Oh, she's saying this. We bring something from 10 years earlier. Your mother had said this, your father had said that at that time, and you said this and you said that. So we are not really listening, we are not validating the experience of the person who is sharing something with us.
हुँ,
So that's why active listening is very, very important. In active listening, you repeat what the partner has said. And thereafter, it is also important that that we are expected to ask questions
हुँ,
in order to gauge an idea of what our partners have experienced and what they have shared. It also implies that we are sharing our impact with our partners. And what does that
हुँ,
mean? Once your partner has shared something, supposing something happened, or they've shared an experience with you, then you share how that has impacted you. Supposing they shared something that was full of joy, all right, something really nice happened at their workplace, or they had a birthday party is at some friend's place and your partner really enjoyed, and she's sharing that experience with you. Then we are expected to share the impact it has, and you say things like, I feel expansive listening to what you said. Or if there is something sad that they have shared, then you say, I feel tender when you share this. So that is sharing your impact. After that, you need to validate their experience and say, that makes sense that you were going through such a rough period, or you had such a rough time in the office. No wonder you didn't make any tea for me.
हुँ,
Really getting into the shoes of your partner to understand what they have said. Because why this happens is because when we are doing this, there are certain other conditions. And those conditions are that when our partners are sharing, we are not fixing their experience at all. This is what they have experienced. We are not trying to rescue them. All right, tell me what is it, and I will go and sort it out. We're not rescuing them. We're not giving any advice. It's very common in our culture to instantly come up with advice.
या
If you want to give advice, there's always permission to be taken. Are you looking for advice from me, or are you looking for me just to listen to what you have to say? No complaining at all, no blame game at all. And then finally, not killing the experience, which is very common in our Indian culture, not killing the experience of the other person. And by that, I mean, if supposing a partner is saying, oh, this is making me feel irritated, or I'm really sad listening to this, or and the instant is, इसमें उदास होने की क्या बात है, इसमें गुस्सा होने की क्या बात है, इसमें गुस्सा आना ही नहीं चाहिए. This is what the other person has felt, and we cannot deny what they have felt, because when we are following this, and we are um, when an active listening also involves that we are so attentive to what our partners are saying, that we are listening with our hearts, we're listening with our eyes. And that implies that we are picking up non-verbal cues in the other person. And non-verbal cues mean that we are picking up the tone of the person, we're picking up the body language, we're picking up the facial expression of the person who's sharing their things with you. So, open communication is one of the biggest challenges that most couples and people face in their relationships. And these relationships could be a mother daughter relationship, it could be a father son, it could be between the child and parents, or it could even be between husband and wife.
यस. सी मैंने ये भी देखा है कि जैसे हम ओपन कम्युनिकेशन की बात कर रहे हैं और ओपन होना बहुत मुश्किल होता है. ऐसा हमें ये लगता है कि अरे अगर हम ये चीज़ शेयर करेंगे तो पार्टनर विल जज अस कि अच्छा ऐसे ऐसा तुम्हारे साथ हुआ था. तो मतलब हमारे मन में ये आ जाता है ना कि अच्छा तुमने ऐसे बिहेव किया था, किसी ने तुम्हारे साथ ऐसा किया फिर तुमने ऐसा किया. तो हम कई बार चीज़ें शेयर ही नहीं करते हैं, बताते ही नहीं है कि चलो छोड़ो, लेट इट बी. और फिर जो हमारे बिहेवियर पैटर्न्स हैं या उस इंसिडेंट से हमें हमारे अंदर जो इमोशंस हैं वो किसी और तरीके से बाहर आते हैं. और दिस हर्ट्स आवर रिलेशनशिप्स, वी ऑल नो दैट. तो या आपने बताया कि ओपन कम्युनिकेशन ज़रूरी है, पर इसकी शुरुआत कैसे करें? मान लो जैसे मैं हूँ, मेरी शादी को 13 ईयर्स होने वाले हैं, बट आई नो कि अभी भी देयर इज़ अ लॉट ऑफ स्कोप टू बी ओपन. तो शुरुआत कहाँ से करें ओपन होने की?
शुरुआत चाहे धीरे से करें या छोटे से पैमाने पे करें,
हुँ.
irrespective where you're beginning, it requires courage.
येस.
And that's where the idea of authenticity comes in, because most of our relationships in our cultures are not authentic. We are not being true to each other so far as our communication is concerned. And as you mentioned, क्योंकि हमें लगता है कि हमें पीपल विल जज अस, और हमें लगता है कि हमें किसी को, अगर मैं ये सच बोल दूंगी कि उनको ऐसा, कि मुझे ऐसा फील हुआ, या जब आपने ऐसा शेयर किया ऐसा फील किया, देन वील रॉक द बोट, and then he will get displeased with me, or he'll get angry with me, or whatever the reaction might be, and therefore we don't do it. And what happens with that is, जो भी हम ये reactions बोल रहे हैं, this is our nervous system going into the sympathetic state. So our nervous system goes through four states. It can go in either of them. We can either get into a fight. We can fight. उसने मुझे ये कहा, मैंने उसने ये कहा, मैंने ये कह दिया, उसने वो कहा, मैंने उसको वो कह दिया. So there is, you get into a fight, or the reaction could be you flee. You want to run away from that situation, all right? You don't want to discuss it. Some of us become absolutely quiet and numb. हम तो कुछ बोलते ही नहीं हैं, just the way you said. That could be going into a freeze response. And the last response, which is very common in India, amongst women, especially in Indian women, is the idea of going into a fawn response. And fawn response is that we get into people pleasing. हम दूसरे को इतना प्लीज करने लग जाते हैं, in order to sacrifice ourselves, we sacrifice ourselves to such an extent कि दूसरे खुश होने चाहिए, मैं खुश रहूं ना रहूं, मेरा तो कोई बात नहीं है, and they'll keep cribbing to 300 people about this. All right. However, they will not be truthful in opening up with their partners, because there's always that fear. चाहे आप थोड़े से पे शुरू करें, and taking your partners on board, that we are going to have authentic relationship with each other, because we do all this because we don't know how to do conflicts constructively. We don't want to get into a fight. मैं तो लड़ाई नहीं करना चाहती थी बस, because we don't know how to fight. We don't know how to do conflicts constructively. This is the biggest problem we all have. We don't want to rock the boat क्योंकि हमें लगता है हम किसी को नाराज कर देंगे. Whereas true connections only take place when there is a rupture. So there is a cycle we follow, that there is a connection, there's a rupture, and then there is you reconnect. There are ways to reconnect after you've had a conflict for the connection to become strong. इसलिए हमको वो साइकिल कंप्लीट करने के लिए कनेक्शन, रप्चर और रिकनेक्शन, ये साइकिल कंप्लीट करने के लिए कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स को जानना कि किस तरह से हम कंस्ट्रक्टिवली कॉन्फ्लिक्ट कर सकते हैं, वो हम लोगों को मोस्टली को नहीं आता है. इसलिए हम इश्यूज को सामने ही नहीं आने देते हैं. So we'd have to start at a very small level, all right? And depending on how comfortable you are in your relationship and how much on board your partner is in being authentic with you. Do they want an authentic relationship? Do they want a conscious relationship? कि मैं जो भी कहूँ, I can, he is ready to accept me the way I am. And similarly, I am ready to accept him just what he shares. Because हमें लग रहा है कि हम उसको सब बता दें. Are we women also ready to see him and accept what he shares? Maybe he's got certain experiences that he would like to share with you and he's not doing it. So far as women are concerned, we still have lots of avenues amongst friends here, there, we go and share things. The problem is with men as well because they don't know where to go and share it. Can they share it with their wives? Can they share it and will their wives accept them? Because हम wives put our husbands on such a high pedestal कि वो तो एकदम परमात्मा की तरह है. Whereas वो परमात्मा नहीं है, वो भी हमारी ही तरह है. उनके भी वैसे ही इश्यूज हैं जैसे हमारे इश्यूज हैं. We are not providing a platform for men as well to open up and share their experiences with all of us. So this will have to be a conversation initially amongst the couples themselves, that can we be authentic? Can we open up and share? And then starting with smaller issues initially. Once you've built up that confidence, then with the bigger issues perhaps. I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Yes. अच्छा, can you give us an example कि constructive conflict करे कैसे? Because when we have that kind of discussion या मान लीजिए कुछ argument हो रहा है तो emotions are so high कि जो constructive वाला part है ना हमारे brain का वो चला ही जाता है. And we are just busy blaming each other या फिर maybe even blaming ourselves in our heads, but सामने सामने नहीं तुम्हारी वजह से हुआ, तुम्हारी वजह से हुआ, ये चीज़ करने लगते हैं. तो ये constructive mode में जाएं कैसे?
कंस्ट्रक्टिव मोड में जाने के लिए वी हैव टू इंश्योर, जो आप बोल रहे हैं कि इमोशंस बहुत हाई हो जाते हैं, दैट इज योर इम्पल्स, है ना. आप इम्पल्सिव हो जाते हैं और इसलिए आप जो रिस्पॉन्स करते हैं वो वन ऑफ द ट्रिगर्ड रिस्पॉन्स है, जो मैंने 4 रिस्पॉन्सेज अभी बताए थे,
Yeah.
राइट. वो एक ट्रिगर्ड रिस्पॉन्स है. हमें क्या करना है कि जो इम्पल्स और रिस्पॉन्स के बीच में बहुत थोड़ा सा गैप होता है, जो पॉज है उसको बढ़ाना है, so that we are not reactive. और वो करने के लिए हमें सेल्फ रेगुलेशन टेक्निक्स सीखनी होंगी ताकि हम इंस्टेंटली रिस्पॉन्ड ना करें. उसके लिए हमें ये जानना होगा कि इस टाइम मैं अपने वन ऑफ द 4 रिएक्टिव स्टेट्स में हूँ, मैं इस टाइम सिंपैथेटिक नर्वस सिस्टम में हूँ और मुझे पॉज लेना ज़रूरी है यहाँ पे. So telling your partners that I will be back in 2 minutes, I will be back in 5 minutes, I'll be back in 20 minutes and then I will come and speak to you. और वो जो आप टाइम स्पेस ले रहे हैं उस टाइम पे 10 मिनट 15-20 मिनट का, उस टाइम आप बाथरूम में या कहीं पे जाकर अपने गुस्से को ठंडा करना है, अपने इमोशंस को ठंडा करना है, उसके लिए सेल्फ रेगुलेशन टेक्निक्स करनी है. यू हैव टू कम इन टू योर प्रेजेंट मोमेंट. एंड हाउ डू यू कम इन टू योर प्रेजेंट मोमेंट? The idea is to come into your body, because उस टाइम हम इतने हाइपर स्टेट पे हैं कि हम अपनी बॉडी छोड़ जाते हैं. वी forget that we have to return to our body. Most of us don't know how to feel our emotions. We have to sit with those emotions, and coming into the present moment implies that we get into touch with any of our senses. And by senses I mean all the 5 senses that we have, right? आप थोड़ा सा स्पेस लेके आप अपने हस्बैंड को बोलें या वाइफ को बोलें, जो भी है, कि मैं 5 मिनट में आ रहा हूँ या मैं 5 मिनट में आ रही हूँ. Go into your bathroom or into your room and start observing things. Pick up any three things. Like in front of me, I can now see that I have a bottle lying here. I have my glasses case lying here. Look at it properly. Look at the texture. Look at the shape. This is bringing you into your body. Can you hear something? All right. Listen for those noises around you, far away from you. All right. Body plays a very important role. It is very very wise. आप चाहे अपने हाथ दबाएं. All right, because touch plays a very important role in coming back into the present moment. ठीक है. आप अपनी thighs को अपने hand से अच्छे से press करें. That's bringing you into the present moment. Feeling your feet on the ground. Do whatever that you can, but come into the present moment. And once you have your emotions, the high emotions that you were feeling, once you feel that you are regulated, then go back to your conversation to talk to your husband or to wife or to your wife. And mind you that in our relationships, especially in India, हमें ये लगता है मैं तो उसको सुना ही हूँ, मैं तो उसको सुना दिया है, मैंने तो उसको आज कह दिया है ना,
हम्म.
मुझे जीतना ही जीतना है.
हाँ, ईगो
Alright?
आ जाता है कि मतलब मैं पीछे क्यों हटूं.
मैं क्यों
दे
हटूं?
शुड बैक ऑफ.
लेकिन we have to understand that a relationship has three entities. आप, आपका पार्टनर और आपका रिलेशनशिप. जब आप जीत रहे हैं तो इसका मतलब आपका पार्टनर हार रहा है ना. आप दोनों में से अगर किसी एक की भी हार हो रही है तो आपका रिलेशनशिप भी हार रहा है. तो जब भी आपको रिस्पॉन्ड करना है तो आपको ये देखना है कि हम दोनों की विन विन सिचुएशन हो, ताकि हमारा रिलेशनशिप भी विन करे. और हम ऐसा नहीं करते हैं. हम अपनी ही जीत में, अपनी प्राइड में लगे हुए हैं. हमारा रिलेशनशिप भी थर्ड एंटिटी है. अगर एक भी हार गया तो रिलेशनशिप हार गया. हमको जब भी कुछ रिस्पॉन्स देना है तो हमें ये सोच के देना है कि क्या मैं इस सिचुएशन में अपने रिलेशनशिप को हारना देना चाहता हूँ. मैं अपने रिलेशनशिप को फ्यूचर में कैसा देखना चाहता हूँ और या कैसा देखना चाहती हूँ. कि डू आई हैव टू बी पैसिव अग्रेसिव, मैं ऐसे क्रिटिकल होती रहूं या ऐसा कुछ भी गुस्सा करके निकल जाऊं या कुछ भी. येस, आई अंडरस्टैंड देर इज एंगर, देर आर मोमेंट्स, देर आर डेफिनेटली दीज इमोशंस विल कम एंड वी हैव टू फील देम. However, we have to regulate ourselves. This is 100% responsibility of each one of us. मेरी 100% रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, पार्टनर की 100% रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कि हम अपने आप को रेगुलेट करें और फिर उस रिलेशनशिप को आगे बढ़ाएं. बट द प्रॉब्लम इज वेदर इट इज आर फेरी टेल्स, चाहे स्नो वाइट, सिंड्रेला, जितनी भी हमने पढ़ी थी, या बॉलीवुड भी, दैट दे ऑल द टाइम एम्फसाइज कि हम 50% हैं, हम आधे आधे हैं और एक दूसरे को पूरा करते हैं, which is a wrong
Yes.
concept that leads to codependency. Whereas the idea is to become, both of you are 100%, both of you, and then together you form 200% in the relationship. You are independent and you are interdependent on each other, not dependent on each other, which is very important. That we are interdependent, where each of us provides a safe harbor, a launching pad to our partners, rather than coming into a state where I'm the winner and you are the loser, because that way the relationship will lose.
ट्रू, माई हस्बैंड ऑलवेज सेज दिस कि तुम हमेशा विन लूज वाली फेज में चली जाती हो. तो वॉट यू आर सेइंग इज मेकिंग अ लॉट ऑफ सेंस टू मी. एंड यू सेड कि हमें अपने आप को कंट्रोल करना है, अपने आप से शुरुआत करनी है. तो नाउ मोनिका, प्लीज टेल अस व्हाट रोल डज सेल्फ केयर प्ले इन आवर रिलेशनशिप्स. सेल्फ केयर, वी नो कि अभी वी आर finally getting to understand what real self care is. So we would like to know from you how to bring it in the picture.
Certainly. Self care is not being selfish. And this, once again, in our culture, it is believed कि अगर हम अपना ध्यान रख रहे हैं तो we are being very selfish. And we feel guilty and we feel really, we start judging ourselves. Forget about the world. I mean, the world also judges us, but we also begin to judge ourselves that I'm spending some time on myself. पता नहीं बच्चे क्या सोच रहे होंगे, husband क्या सोच रहे होंगे. This is really selfish of me. I shouldn't have. And even I've heard husbands and wife talking on those lines, you shouldn't have gone and spent, you should have gone with me, you should have. Every time we are shoulding each other, should, that means there's a lot of judgment coming through. Self care, self love is not being selfish. It is important to look after ourselves. So, unless we don't look after ourselves and unless we are not looking after our own needs, we will not be able to or in a position to look after the needs of the others. And let me come back to that. When we are talking about self care, and I've used the word needs, most of us are not even aware of what our needs are, firstly. And the other question that comes up is within a relationship. I've been married, you just said 13 years, somebody's married for 20 years, whatever time. He should have known that I like this and he hasn't done it. उनको पता नहीं है मेरे साथ 15 साल से रह रहे हैं कि मुझे ये अच्छा लगता है और फिर भी मुझे नहीं दिया. उनको नहीं मालूम. Simple as that. Till you don't express it, they don't know it. So, whether it's a husband or whether it's a wife, we need to express our needs to the other person. And asking for our needs to be fulfilled is not selfish. It is being transparent in the relationship. And it is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of strength that you are able to present your needs, because we all have needs. Because what happens is when our needs are not fulfilled, we create triangles. Now, what do I mean by triangles? Triangles means, अभी मैंने पहले आपको एक triangle बताया था about the three entities in a relationship, you, your husband, and your relationship. Triangle here is कि जब हमारी needs complete नहीं होती हैं तो हम क्या करते हैं, हम जाके अपनी मम्मी को बोलते हैं कि उसने हमारे लिए ये नहीं किया, वो नहीं किया, ये नहीं किया, वो नहीं किया. ऑलराइट, पहले तो वो जो हमारी रिलेशनशिप की 3 एंटिटीज थी वो अब एक ट्राइंगल से हट के अब वो हेक्सागन या पेंटागन हो गया, क्योंकि हमने भाई को भी बता दिया, भाभी को बता दिया, उसको बता दिया, उसको बता दिया. ऑलराइट, सो द रिलेशनशिप एज इट इज has failed because you have broken up that triangle. On top of that, what you have done, you have become the victim, and you are telling your complaints to your mom or whoever who has become your rescuer. And then the husband or the wife, whoever you're complaining against, has become the prosecutor. वो तो है ही बुरा, उसने तो करना ही आता था, वो तो करता ही ऐसा है, उसकी तो आदत ही ऐसी है. And what we are doing is we have created this another triangle here, a hexagon, a pentagon, or whatever, depending on how many people that we are telling them. All right. Yes, go and tell if you want to tell people. Go and seek support. However, when you are seeking support or you're telling someone, they should assist you to see your role in it and how you can take responsibility rather than collude with you and blame the other person. So your friend, you have to have such friends or people who support you, who can show you your role, who can hold a mirror for you and say, hey, this is your fault as well, rather than saying, na wo teesra banda bekar hai. All right, because each one of us are responsible for whenever a conflict takes place. We feel it's the other person, but somewhere down the line, even we are responsible for having had that conflict, or why either we've not expressed our needs or whatever we've not done. So when we are talking about self-care, all this gets included into the idea of self-care.
Okay.
And self-care, I would also mention in self-care, involve indulging into activities that look after your body, mind, and soul. Whether it is meditation, whether it is journaling, movement of the body is very, very important. Whether you're going out for a walk or whether it's yoga, whatever that you're doing, movement of the body allows us to shift the energy in our body. So, doing activities that involve the mind, body, and soul. So, taking those into considerations, and then it is not selfish to look after yourself.
Yes. And at this point, Monica, I would also like to remind my listeners that we are not talking about extreme cases here. We are not talking about abusive relationships here.
Yeah, we're not talking about abusive relationships here. And you're taking me in an entirely different direction now, because abuse is so normalized in the Indian culture that we don't even realize we are in an abusive relationship. Most of
Mhm.
us don't even know what the red flags of a relationship are. Forget about the green flags.
Yes.
So, yes, there is a very, very large, I mean, having been raised um, in India myself, I know there's a very huge population which is not aware of being in an abusive relationship either.
Yeah, and that is a very different topic. I just wanted to address it once so that जो भी सुन रहा है वो समझ जाए कि हम लोग जिन रिलेशनशिप्स की बात कर रहे हैं वो उस एक्सट्रीम लेवल पे नहीं है. एंड नाउ मोनिका, हमने सेल्फ केयर की बात करी, और अगर अपने पार्टनर के साथ अपने रिलेशनशिप की बात करें तो फिर हम कैसे एक तो पहली बात तो ये होती है कि अगर हम अपने मेंटल हेल्थ स्ट्रगल शेयर करते हैं तो फर्स्ट थिंग तो ये होती है कि सामने वाला हमें जज करेगा. देन वी स्पोक अबाउट इट. फिर उसके बाद नेक्स्ट स्टेप आता है अपने पार्टनर को एनकरेज करने का कि यू कैन सीक हेल्प. एंड ऑल्सो इफ वी वॉन्ट टू सीक हेल्प, समटाइम्स क्या होता है कि हमारे जो पार्टनर होते हैं दे आर नॉट ऑन बोर्ड विद इट, कि क्यों ज़रूरत है, मुझे क्यों ज़रूरत है, या तुम्हें क्यों ज़रूरत है थेरेपी की, काउंसलिंग की, किसी भी चीज़ की. तो उसके लिए हम कैसे रेडी करें अपने रिलेशनशिप को?
दैट्स अ वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन. सबसे पहले हमें ये समझना होगा कि जब हम अपने पार्टनर को इनकरेज करने वाले हैं कि वो थेरेपी या काउंसलिंग या एक कोच को अप्रोच करें, एंड लेट मी मेक अ लिटिल डिस्टिंक्शन हियर. When we are talking about a therapist, or we are talking when we are talking about a therapist, so a therapist assists people in integrating their past with the present. Someone like me, who's a coach, who's a relationship coach, who's a divorce coach, someone like me assists people from in their present, provides them with tools and strategies, and from the present takes them into the future. So whether you are approaching a coach or whether you're approaching a therapist, all right, first of all, we have to be clear about the motive on why we are asking our partner to see a therapist or a coach. If our motive is that, oh, she's really annoying, she must go and see somebody, iske sath there's some problem with her, she has to see. The other motive is that you genuinely care about your partner, you love your partner so much that you really want the other partner to seek help. If you are clear about your motive, then in that case your language will be different. And here, the idea is to be really cautious about how you're speaking with your partner about this aspect. First and foremost, it is necessary that you get clear with your motive. Secondly, when you're talking to your partner, what kind of language are you using? Very recently, when you were telling me some example, you said कि तूने ये किया, तूने वो किया, तूने वो किया. All right. Whenever we are using the word you, all right, you did this, you did that. That is um, that is the use of a lot of accusation. Good relationships, conscious relationships, don't use the word you. Everything that has to be expressed through the I statements. I would like you to take assistance of a coach. I would, everything that you have to say is using the I statements. I am deeply concerned about the well-being, about your well-being, and therefore I would sincerely like that you seek a therapist or a coach. Because when we're using language like this, then it is a very empathetic language. You have to take them into consideration, you have to take their feelings into consideration. When you're talking about something like this, you have to ensure that both the partners are in a very calm state. You know, one is in reactive, तुम्हें गुस्सा आया हुआ है और तुम कह रहे हो, जा तू तो थेरेपी पे जा, तू यहाँ चली जा, तू वहाँ चली. It will never happen. So both of you have to be in a very good position, in a very calm position when you're talking about this. When you're talking about issues like this, it has to be done in private, not amongst the family. You have three people sitting there, because then you've broken the three entities. You've made it a pentagon or a hexagon or a rectangle, square, whatever. So this has to be done very privately and at a time when your partner and both of you are in a calm state. You're in a good mood. You're using the I statements. And at the same time, and this I will bring another aspect to this as well, that asking and going to a therapist or a coach is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Because the clients that come to me, they're not coming to save their marriages. They're coming to me to improve their marriages. So we have to also begin destigmatizing the idea of being in therapy or or seeing a coach or a therapist or a psychologist. And for that, I'm deviating a little, because therapy or going to a counselor, to a psychologist, to a coach is equally stigmatized as is divorce in the Indian culture. We say, वो तो पागल होगी इसलिए गया होगा, वो तो पागल होगा इसलिए होगा. We have to be mindful of the language, this destigmatized language that we use. And for that, we'll have to educate the public. We have to come up with awareness campaigns. Social media can play a very important role where we are normalizing the idea of seeing a therapist, because the stress level in the community is so high. The relationship dynamics has changed so much. And therefore, going over and seeing therapists or coaches or psychologists should not be seen as as being stigmatized, but it should be encouraged. It should become a normal way that I'm only going because I want to improve my relationship. Stories of people who have been in therapy, all right, should come up. Let me share my own example. When I got divorced, at that time, the rock solid support that I got from my therapist is absolutely unbelievable. I was in therapy for 3 years. However, the first time when I went to see the therapist, I parked my car 3 lanes down the street so that nobody could see me going to into a therapist's office. Nobody knew me. I mean, I live in Melbourne in Australia. Nobody had a clue. Even if I was going, nobody would care. And yet, that fear was so strong within me because of my cultural upbringing and my conditioning, that I was judging myself that I was going and seeing a therapist. And it was so hard initially. Whereas thereafter, I was in therapy for 3 years. And what, not that I was mad or anything, but because I wanted to make sense of my divorce. I wanted to make a sense of my new identity after being divorced. I wanted to be able to know more about the cycles of grief that I was in. I wanted to understand wanted to understand this new identity that I was taking. So all that made sense, even the emotional highs and lows, because I was on an emotional roller coaster when I was after my divorce. So in order to understand my highs and lows of emotions, it was necessary for me to be in therapy. And look where therapy has brought me today, that I'm in a position where I am coaching people. So, bringing up stories like this where people can talk openly about seeking support from a therapist or a coach, and I have always had coaches now. Yes, a therapist to integrate my past, and now coaches to take me forward, because that's the way, that is what opens the doors for self discovery, for personal development, for moving towards the idea of understanding yourself better and being grounded, and therefore living into that present moment and accepting what is around you. So if we are normalizing normalizing the idea of therapy or coaching in our culture through having open discussions in schools, through, as I said, through social media, even opening up places where people can share about their mental health issues without being judged or without feeling ashamed, coming up with leading by example, openly telling stories about how beneficial it is to be in therapy, and how much changes it can bring about, and how much confidence it can give you when you are in therapy or when you've talked to a coach. So when you take that into consideration, once again coming back to your question because I deviated a little. So when a partner is trying to speak to the other partner to seek support, normalizing it, letting the partner know that you are there with them on this journey without any judgment. And even then, if the other partner is not ready, not coercing them into it, not forcing into it, just leaving it at that. And maybe the partner will come back to you when they feel, yes, this is the right time. I've got the support. I'm not being judged. I have a partner who's very empathetic, and this is the right time to get into it. So it will normalize things.
Mhm. So, thank you for sharing your story too, Monica. And now, please give us some practical tips or exercises that we can incorporate into our daily lives to support mental health within our relationships.
Yes, beautiful question once again. I have been giving a lot of tips whilst I have been talking about all this. However, another aspect that I want to include here, and why our stress levels go up, is also because in our Indian culture, we have no concept of setting boundaries.
Mhm.
So, what does boundaries mean? In very, very simple terms, boundaries means the ability to say no to the other person. Boundary means a point where we are about to lose ourselves. And what do I mean by lose? That we are going into one of those four states of our nervous system. That either we want to fight, getting into your body, what is my body feeling? I want to fight, do I want to run away, do I want to please this person? Or I'm absolutely speechless. I can't answer this question at all. I don't know. My brain's absolutely frozen. I don't know what to respond. I'm really confused. In any of those situations,
Mhm.
okay, at that point in time, your body is telling you this is the time to set boundary, this is the time for you to say no. And no means setting boundaries, because what happens in our cultures, we associate self-sacrifice with love. That if we love somebody, then we are constantly sacrificing ourselves, whether we like it or not, under obligation. वो आया था मैं कुछ कह ही नहीं सकी, मुझे तो करना ही पड़ेगा, whatever. All right. And we've lost ourselves. We are cribbing to everyone. All right. However, we have not had the ability to say no, starting at a very small scale and just learning to say no, because no is a complete sentence. And when you say no to the other person, it's saying yes to ourselves. Not that you have won, but you have not abandoned yourself. This is self care, this is love. That I am protecting myself because I don't have the capacity to take on more work. And I am saying yes because I am under certain obligations. So self care, self love practices, the ones that you're talking about, it also come with the idea of saying no to people, and not just saying no every time. If you can do it, yes, do it. And boundaries are not walls. Instantly, when we talk about boundaries, it's like those fences, those walls that come up. They are not walls. They are very dynamic. They are very flexible. That I can say no today, but yes, the same thing I can say yes tomorrow if I have some time and I'm happy to do it. All right. So they're very dynamic. Sometimes what happens, due to certain obligations, we do say yes. All right, but later on we realize मैं तो नहीं कर सकती. There's a very
Mhm.
good book by Terry Cole called The Boundary Boss, in which she talks about the idea of having a 24-hour policy. So giving yourself those 24 hours and thinking, क्या मैं ये चीज़ कर सकती हूँ या नहीं कर सकती हूँ? अगर मुझे 24 hours में लग रहा है कि नहीं, I've taken too much on myself, मैं नहीं कर सकती. Take that time and go back to them and say, I take responsibility. Speaking like this, I take responsibility that I had agreed to do this. However, I have too much on my plate and therefore I am not in a position to do it. Always using the I words. Now, what I said, every line had I in it. Not you did this, you said me to me, and I had to do it. No, no, no. All I statements. I am unable to do it. I did take it on. However, I take full responsibility that I am unable to do this at the moment because I have some other needs to fulfill or I have some other prior commitments.
Mhm.
And if the other person, yes, when we are setting boundaries, there will definitely be a reaction. Nobody wants you to say no to them. All
Mhm.
right? Being ready for it, that it's okay. Some people will understand me and some won't understand me, and that's okay because I have to look after myself. I have to look after my own self needs. And when we're talking about these practical strategies, this is also one of those practical strategies of being having the ability. Start at a smaller scale and then slowly you can keep pushing your stretch hold in order to say no to the bigger things as well.
Yes, yes, definitely. And Monica, any final words of advice or encouragement for people who want to work on mental health in their relationships?
A very simple thing that we've all forgotten, that we tell our children, is the idea of saying thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We humans we humans are wired to look for the negatives in our life, and we are constantly looking for negative things in our partners. He didn't do this, he didn't do that, he didn't do that. All right. Whereas looking for that innate goodness in our partners, looking for that goodness in society. So, intentionally, consciously, because automatically we will look for negative things. But then coming back into your conscious self and looking for good things in a person and saying thank you. And not that thank you, not like that, but saying thank you and then giving the reason on why you're thanking. Thank you for assisting me in making lunch boxes today. I really appreciate it, because each one of us, our mental stress as it is would dissipate, it will dilute if we are just being generous and kind to each other. We talk about this to our children, yes, all the time, but as adults we forget that it's about being kind and being appreciative, being respectful to each other as well. So looking for that innate goodness in each one of us, irrespective, because we all have flaws. That's why we are humans, and yet looking for the goodness in each one of us.
बट यू नो मोनिका, थैंक यू कहना भी बहुत मुश्किल होता है. ईगो आ जाता है बीच में. एटलीस्ट मेरे साथ ऐसा होता है कि अगर माय हस्बैंड हैज़ डन समथिंग, तो मुझे थैंक यू कहने में लगता है कि क्यों बोलूँ थैंक यू, ये तो मतलब करना ही है, ये तो बेयर मिनिमम है, थैंक यू बोलना ही क्यों है.
हाँ, यहीं पे तो हमें अपना एटीट्यूड थोड़ा-सा चेंज करना है ना? अगर हमें हेल्थी रिलेशनशिप चाहिए, है ना? तो हमें कहीं शुरुआत करनी पड़ेगी. एक भी पार्टनर अगर शुरू करता है, और इट विल ब्रश ऑन द अदर पार्टनर एज़ वेल. दे विल आल्सो स्टार्ट रिस्पोंडिंग इन द सेम सेंस. ईगो को तो बिल्कुल साइड में ही कर दो ना, क्योंकि अगर आप ईगो लेके आ रहे हो, है ना? तो आपने अपना जो ट्रायंगल, जो 3 एंटिटीज़ थी, उसको स्क्वायर बना दिया है, क्योंकि अब ईगो की भी आपने एक एंटिटी बना दी है. तो ईगो तो है ही नहीं ना. हमारा ट्रायंगल है, मैं हूँ, आप हैं और हमारा रिलेशनशिप है. उसी को ही मेंटेन करके रखना है, क्योंकि अगर हम ईगो को लेके आ रहे हैं तो हमारा रिलेशनशिप फेल हो रहा है, और हमें अपने रिलेशनशिप को फेल नहीं होने देना. वी हैव टू होल्ड दैट in high esteem so that we have healthy, happier, nurturing relationships.
Wow. This was a really powerful conversation, Monica. I really enjoyed talking to you. And before I let you go, please let us know a little more about your work and how can people reach out to you.
People can get in touch with me either on LinkedIn, or they can get in touch with me on Facebook. I'm very active on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm also active on Instagram. Honestly speaking, I'm not very well versed. मुझे Instagram use इतना नहीं करना आता, but I'm still trying. So if people can follow me on my, I'm posting there regularly. So if people can follow me on Instagram, ask me questions on Instagram, I will instantly respond. And I have a Revorce You program. So if in case you want to do inner work on yourself, you want to understand your relationship patterns, you want to understand, you want to understand on how you show up in your relationships. So I assist people not only to improve their relationships, I also assist people who are going through divorce so that they can revive their confidence, they can reclaim their inner power, and at the same time reset emotionally for healthy, nurturing relationships. I would also like to add that if people want, I am also an author. I have 2 books. One is called How Do You Know He's the One, which talks about red flags in relationships, if to see whether you are in an abusive relationship or not. It also talks about healthy traits in a relationship. So, how do you know he's the one? And how to heal from a toxic relationship. I have written these 2 books. They are both available on Amazon. So you can buy those books from there. They're available in a Kindle form for India on Amazon, and you can buy those books as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Monica, for sharing your wisdom and insights with us. Thank you so much for your time to Little Fixes.
Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely speaking to you. Thank you.
अगर आपको ये एपिसोड वैल्यूएबल लगा तो प्लीज हेल्प लिटिल फिक्सेस रीच मोर पीपल बाय शेयरिंग इट विद समवन यू केयर अबाउट. यू कैन ऑल्सो गिव अस अ शाउट आउट ऑन Instagram. मेरा हैंडल है @littlefixespodcast. दिस हेल्प्स मी इन ग्रोइंग द पॉडकास्ट और बहुत सारे और लोगों की हेल्प भी होती है इसको सुन के. आई एम ग्रेटफुल फॉर योर टाइम. अब मिलते हैं नेक्स्ट वेडनेसडे को. तब तक के लिए खुद से प्यार करते रहो और सदा सैसी रहो. बाय.